Since I first appeared on one of these bikes back in the summer with a Topeak light mounted underneath my Wahoo, I have received more messages than I could have possibly replied to, asking what light it was and how exactly I'd attached it. Well, today I finally have time to sit you down, or sit myself down, talk you through what I did and a few other bike light hacks as well. First up, the light that I used. This was a light that I was using to be seen with, and I used it often on the blinking function. It's a Topeak Lux 450. Now it's got 450 lumens of power when on full beam, and the battery life will give you an hour and a half of usage. But I used it on the blinking function, which gives me up to 10 hours. And I simply mounted it underneath my Wahoo mount. Using the supplied elasticated rubber band, I wrapped it around the Wahoo mount twice and used these tabs to secure it into place. It really couldn't have been simpler, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the first person to have come up with that idea. Now, I use this light primarily to be seen with, and I used it on the blinking function as I mentioned before, but on occasion I did have to use it to see with as well. One of those days where the sun sets that little bit earlier than you expect because of the cloud cover and things like that, and it's getting a little bit dark underneath the trees. Perfectly functional, although I wouldn't want to do an entire night ride on just this one light. My main reason for mounting it underneath the bar and not on top of the stem was because I do run a GPS unit all of the time that's collecting any of the data that I'm creating whilst pedaling. And having it on top was ever so slightly either obscuring the GPS unit, or worse still, the GPS unit would obscure the vision of the light. And that's just a big no-no to me. Now, this light didn't attract quite as much attention as it's on the back of the bike and we're rarely filmed from behind, but this is the Red Light Aero USB light, and I use this again on a flashing function out back. I generally used one at a time, and if I'm commuting in the dark then I'll use two. One on a slow flashing setting, because that is legal where we live here in the UK, so you're going to need to check the rules on that. It's also potentially not legal to have a flashing light on the front of your bike where you live, in which case you can use either of these lights on a solid setting. The battery life will be sufficient for most rides, and you'll be able to see where you're going and you'll be seen clearly as well. Now, personally, if I was riding in broad daylight, I would choose just one light up front. If the light is really bright, it's still going to attract attention, especially if it's on that blinking function. But if I was riding later in the evening or early in the morning, then I'd also use another backup light, something that I could potentially see with if the light was to suddenly fade. This is always good as a backup emergency. Or in a rare case scenario where you haven't remembered to charge your lights, you then at least have an extra chance that your backup light has more battery power left in it. For me personally, the main reason for running lights is purely for safety. I've got a lot to live for. I've got two kids at home that I want to get home to every single night. So making sure that I'm well lit when I'm riding my bike in the dark is of incredible importance to me. On the back of my bike, I'll nearly always have two lights, one flashing and one on a solid setting. But I'll also use lights on a rear pocket, which is a perfect place to mount something that you're going to remove before you wash your kit, or higher up on the back of your helmet. Anything that you can do to increase your visibility on the road is going to make you feel safer, more comfortable, and therefore you're going to enjoy the ride that little bit extra as well. I've mentioned before, I'm a huge fan of using a twin headlight setup on the front of my bike. On the whole, I'll use one light on a more powerful setting, and I'll use that to shine a little bit further away so I can see what obstacles are coming up in the road, what potholes are there any puddles or any grooves that I'm going to need to avoid, and this is perfect for really dark night riding. And then I'll use one with a slightly reduced output so that I know the battery's going to last that little bit longer, just in case my commute for some reason takes that little bit longer and I don't get home on one main charge from the big battery. When it comes to actually placing your lights onto your bike, one of the most important things to think about is how prominent the light will be. Will it be seen easily by other road users? Now for this, you're going to have to consider the head height of other road users. We're on the roads with a wide variety of vehicle. We've got lorry drivers who are a good few meters up in the air. You've also got drivers on small sports cars who are barely a meter from the ground. And to cover all of these angles, I recommend a few different placements for your lights. When it comes to mounting your lights, I've seen many different things done over the years, even on the side of the drops, on the side of the forks, on the head tube, but my personal favorite at the moment is to have my two winter night lights up on the top of the bar, and then my daytime running light, as I like to call it, mounted like this. It's very easy to do, doesn't involve too much creativity, and look at that, neatly mounted. When it comes to mounting a rear light, it's actually really important to try and get it as high up as possible, because you'll notice that even if it's down near the end of the seat tube, or the top of the seat tube if you're working from the bottom of the bike, the rear wheel or a mud guard or anything is going to start obstructing the visibility to other road users. So that's why I think it's particularly important to try and mount one on your pocket or on the back of your helmet as well. Most saddlebags will obscure your normal rear light down here on the seat tube. So instead, why not mount it to the back of the saddlebag? If you have one of those little tabs, it's a reflective tab on this one, where you can sit a slider down on the inside, it should be quite easy to mount a rear light there as well. When it comes to mounting slightly bigger lights like these, sometimes you will find that you'll start to clip your knees when you're riding out of the saddle. This is one of the main issues with riding in the dark. You do ever so slightly have to adapt how you ride. Not only is that how you ride technically and in traffic, but also how you actually pedal on the bike. I'll always aim to try and get the lights tucked out of the way as much as possible. This is because I still like to ride as fast as I can without putting out any extra effort. But generally speaking, I do end up with two big 1600 lumen lights up on top of the bar. And again, I run one of them at full power and one of them ever so slightly underneath that. One of my favourite places to mount a front or rear light is on my helmet, and this is because it turns with my head, and it's proven scientifically that any sort of motion is going to be spotted that much easier by motorists. On my helmet, I'll generally use a smaller light, quite similar to the one that I used on the front of my bike actually, to help pinpoint road signs and things like that, because when you're turning your head and your light is pointing towards road users, it's really going to help them notice you that little bit quicker. These days though, you don't have to rely just on standard traditional lighting. We also have fantastic reflective jackets that are available. You could buy a pair of mudguards which got the lights built into them. Saddlebags also have lights built into them these days as well. And then you can look at your luggage. A backpack that you might be carrying for your short commute is also a perfect place to add a little bit of extra lighting. And once you've exhausted those options, why not go all out? Remember over Christmas when John and I created the Tron bike? I mean, it's probably not street legal in many parts of the world, but that bike, it stood out. I don't think anyone could argue they hadn't seen a cyclist riding a bike as bright as that one. If you found this video useful, please do give me a thumbs up. And I'm sorry I've kept you waiting for so long if you had been trying to find out exactly what sort of light I was using on the front of the bike. Let me know your lighting hacks down in the comments below. And for another video right now, why don't you check out that Tron bike that John and I did make back at Christmas?